A PhD program and a research paper always go hand in hand. Therefore, it is mandatory that every PhD aspirant and a PhD student has a good understanding of what exactly a research paper is. Therefore, today in this video, being your one and only PhD mentor, advisor, and guide, I, Dr. Ritika Gauba, has decided to address all your concerns about research papers. So we are going to address in this video at number 1, we are going to tell you what exactly is research. From there, we are going to move on to discussing what is a research paper. Yes, definitely at number 3, we are going to discuss the relationship between a research and research paper, or between a PhD and a research paper. We will also be explaining why so many universities have made research paper publication as a mandatory requirement for thesis submission. In addition to these 4 points, we are also going to address 2 more questions. At number 5, we are going to answer the question, can only research scholars publish papers? And at number 6, we are going to answer a very important question. Are research aspirants, PhD aspirants required to publish research papers before applying for the PhD journey? Without any further ado, let us start with the very first question, which is, what is research? In very, very simple terms, research is the creation of new knowledge, discovery of new knowledge. This knowledge could belong to any discipline, any area of studies: Sanskrit, history, geography, science, technology, architecture, nutrition, yoga, political science, medicine. Each and every discipline has to do research if they want to grow further, and therefore research is omnipresent in all areas of study. However, please note, research doesn't always need to be creation of new knowledge. Sometimes research also relates to putting the older knowledge, older concept in a new perspective, in a new light. That is also a part of research. So now that we've understood what research is, let us move on to the next part, where we are going to tell you what is a research paper. So now that you've created new knowledge, you've discovered something new, but what would be the use of this new discovery, this new knowledge, if you cannot share it, disperse it among other researchers, other students, academicians, who is going to learn through your research? In order to disperse your research, in order to share your knowledge with researchers and others in your discipline, it is important that you record step by step, write down what you've researched, how you've researched, and then get it published as a research paper. So to define a research paper is a written and a published document of your systematic record of your research work. Remember, it has to be very systematic, it has to be very organized. There is always a particular format of writing a research paper, because research papers are read globally. It is your research is contributing not only to your nation, but it is contributing to that discipline across nations. And therefore, a research has to be very well organized. So in your research paper, it is important that you address these 4 points. At number 1, you will tell us what was the gap that you identified. Then you will move on to explain why do you think it is important to fill this gap. After that, you will tell us how have you filled this gap, or what steps have you taken, or what was your research methodology, in other words. And lastly, you will tell us what was the knowledge that you've created, or what was the result or the implication of your study. So now, from here, let us move on to understanding the relationship between a research paper and your PhD program. So if you've understood now what research is, you've understood what research paper is, now let us see how are the two connected. So you start your PhD journey by reading research papers of other researchers in your discipline. By reading their research papers, you are able to identify the research gap. After you've identified the research gap, you do your study. In the end, once you've created the knowledge, you've come out with new results, new knowledge. Now it is important for you to get your knowledge published in research papers. So if you see, this is a complete cycle. You will first read other people's research papers, gain knowledge. Now whatever knowledge you have created, you will share it with others by getting it published. In fact, research publications have become so important that many universities would not let you submit your PhD thesis unless and until you've published at least 2 or 3 research papers. Why is publishing research papers so mandatory these days? I'll tell you in the next section. So now let's move on to the section where we tell you why universities insist on publishing papers before you can submit your PhD thesis. However, let me clarify this, that UGC had given a regulation which stated that paper publication is not a mandatory requirement for thesis submission. And we had created an entire video on this topic explaining you how this regulation has changed over time and what led UGC to take such a major step. Sharing the link of this video in the I above and in the description below. Do have a look to understand it. However, in spite of this regulation, majority universities continue to make research paper publication a mandatory requirement, which is perfectly legal. Please let me clarify, it is perfectly legal. It is not a violation of any UGC regulation, because UGC's regulation, PhD regulation, is just a minimum requirement, and every university can make their norms much more stringent. Even if a university says that you have to publish 5 papers in an ABDC index journal, you will have to do it because it is their university's regulation, and it is not against, it is not a violation of UGC's regulation. So, okay, now let us understand why do universities insist. That is because a university will not let you submit a PhD thesis till the time they are sure that the knowledge that you've created is actually new and valuable to the discipline in which you are working. Now, as soon as your research work of your PhD work gets accepted or gets published in a research journal, it is actually a proof, it is actually an evidence that your research fraternity recognizes your work as being original and as being valuable. And as soon as you are able to prove that, give evidence to the university is also happy to take your PhD thesis, to submit your PhD thesis. Okay, so the next question that we are going to address is, research papers can be published only by research scholars or research students? No, research papers can be published by anyone. Of course, it is a mandatory requirement, or it is very important for research students. But even if you are not a research student, you are in graduation, post-graduation, or a professional person, then also you can publish research papers. Okay, so the last part of the video deals with the question, is research paper publication required to fill up PhD admission applications? Again, the answer to this question is a big no. PhD applications of majority universities, at least 95 to 96% of them, do not ask for any kind of research paper publications when you are submitting your PhD applications. So you don't have to worry. Even if you do not have any idea about writing research papers, or if you've not written any research papers, don't worry. You can still apply for that dream PhD program of yours. And in case you are looking for a PhD mentor, advisor, or guide who can help you in your PhD admission journey, who can guide you, support you, steer you towards your dream PhD program, then you can get in touch with me on the number given below. This is a new series that we are starting dedicated to research papers and research publications. We will be talking about journals, publication, different types of indexing, and many more things. Do let us know if there is any particular topic that you would want us to address. And in case you haven't already, then please do subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching my videos.